You know your rights? Okay, go for it. I've told this story a few times elsewhere, but always get comments about posting here. Background. My ex and I were 3 months into separation, as I kept suggesting divorce agreements, trying to find what she would accept other than take her back and return to bring a doormat for her. I have a good head for legal documents, and understood very early that as much as I would prefer to just burn everything down and disappear, legally it was very likely I was going to be paying alimony, and she was entitled to a fair share of everything, but in a no-fault state with no gender preferences. It did mean a fair share. It was clear that legally I would not get an approval for an agreement heavily biased in her favor. So I kept reworking and sending possible divisions every few days for months. She would object to anything that put any responsibility on her, anything that left something of value out of her hands. Any time I asked her what terms she would be okay with, she would just derail the conversation to something else. Not long into this I realized that I would need a paper trail, so everything went to email only. Through all of this, I had recognized too that a court would order spousal support, so there wasn't any point in just cutting her off financially. Not a total doormat at this point though. I had moved my direct deposit to a solo account and kept up her weekly cash flow, and kept paying the bills. But my final offer in this period was the heavily unbalanced offer of splitting the cars 1 to each. Me taking all the debt including her student loans, paying her $34,000 a month for a year so she could get her feet under her, and she gets all the stuff. I walk away with my car, my dogs, some tools, and some clothes. No go. Not good enough for her. And so we get to the meat of the story for the MC. 3 months in, I finally get her to agree to a mediator. Since I'm getting nowhere, she shows up to the initial meeting. The first time we have seen each other in a while. The second time since splitting. She was staying with her sister. The mediator starts out with the rules of mediation, and the agreements to sign. I sign easily. She balks, but signs it finally. One of the relevant terms is that we agree to not file any other legal paperwork. We would come to an agreement and the mediator would file the final court papers on both of our behalf to get the divorce ordered. The mediator starts asking basic questions, and every question, to either of us, results in my ex launching into an irrelevant topic attempting emotional manipulation of me or him. I quickly resolve to gray rock her directly, and only direct my interactions to the mediator. I do my best to ignore her off-topic ramblings, and reply to the mediator when she briefly crossed relevancy like someone falling from a tree and briefly being stopped by various branches on the way down. The peak was when she literally crawled on top of the big table to stick her face in mine to force me to see her and engage in her ranting. The mediator called it quits at that point. He reminded her of the rules she agreed to, gave us homework to fill out, and had us schedule the next meeting with his clerk. 2 weeks out, 3 days later I get served with a summons to court for a hearing over spousal support. The summons shows the claim my ex made that all I had received from her in 3 months was $130. Oh boy. Not true at all. Not to mention in violation of the mediator terms. I end up on a conference call with the ex and the mediator as he tells her that she needs to withdraw the complaint or mediation can't continue. She adamantly insists that she knows her rights. So the mediator ends his involvement, cuts us refund checks minus time worked so far, and exits stage left. I prepare for the hearing. I print out 3 months of bank statements, and highlight every transfer to her, every bill paid on her behalf, every ATM withdraw by her card, over 100 toll bills I received from her just driving through express lane tolls so I got the elevated license plate fee mailed to me. $13,000 and change. You missed a couple zeros in your complaint, I thought. My final stack of paper was rather thick, so I made and printed an Excel spreadsheet summary for the cover sheet. I also looked up the spousal support rules again. It is 40% of the difference between the income goes from the higher paid to the lower paid. Some little wiggle room, but that's it. Simple. She was currently getting up to 72% of my pay once you factored her bills in. This court hearing was a good thing. Not as good as a mediator and fast resolution. But I wasn't likely to end up screwed more here. Not to mention I had some daydreams of her finding out what lying on court documents might do. Court date rolls around. I show up to court. Waiting in the hall outside the family law section. She shows up and plops herself next to me to start going off on me again. I try to ignore her. Then to keep from engaging, I start a written transcript of her ranting using the back cover of my paperwork folder. Finally she realized what I'm doing and ends the ranting with, "Oh, I guess you are writing what I'm saying so you can make your friends hate me." They needed no encouragement. She huffs a few seats away and is quiet the rest of the time we waited. The court officer, not a judge, just someone authorized to handle it since it is a simple and clear legal process, finally comes to get us. And we head in. The officer starts the legal speeches. Yada yada. Then asks my ex if she has anything to add to the complaint. She launches into a roller coaster speech proclaiming all my bad faults, some of which were real. How mean I was to try to divorce her, and how I obviously didn't need any of the money I made, because he is just going to live somewhere. Simple and cheap anyway. Yeah, her words. The court officer returns to the present like someone climbing down from the kitchen table after seeing a rat run by. And she asks me if I have anything I'd like to say. She can see the stack of paper and eyeballs it as she is talking. I hand over the stack. Tell the officer that the summary sheet on top should help clear up the financial points in question. And just verbally start going through the items at each one. My ex interrupts to give a reason why that item shouldn't count. Every single one. The officer keeps asking her to stop interrupting, but to no avail. We finally finish the list. The officer is shaking her head slightly and says, "Mr. Yen, this court process is to ensure that both parties are doing the right thing. So all of the and gestures to encompass the stack of paper needs to stop right now. We will garnish your paychecks for the amount specified by law and send that to her instead." I know it's a win. I knew it was going to be. She didn't. She sat there all smug as we get into the calculations. I asked for a couple of adjustments to keep the amount of her car payment since I co-signed and I wanted to be sure the bill was paid. I expected that she would refuse or overspend on other stuff and be unable to pay it. I didn't want to give her the power to trash my credit. The officer agreed. I then asked to keep the insurance payment amount too, for much the same reason. Also agreed by the officer. My ex continued to be smug. I know she was thrilled at the idea of getting a court check directly. It sure would show me. Everything wrapped up. We got the totals. Signed papers. I handed over a check for the first payment. And the officer got up to make copies of everything. I asked the officer if I could wait in another room while she did. And got an agreement with a bit of side eye at my ex. I got my paperwork first, with the officer saying, "It might take a few minutes for her to get her paperwork, but you are free to go." I got the hint and left immediately. I had parked a few streets away anyway. Another barrier if she couldn't park near me. I got in my car and immediately called my cell carrier and canceled her phone. Does she want to set up her own plan? I can't answer that. I am obeying a court order to remove her from my accounts. Okay, and work down the remaining subscriptions I was paying for that she used. I even had the bills in front of me from court with account numbers and customer service numbers. Right there. I was done and driving home when she started blowing up my phone with incoming emails demanding to know what I was doing. Then texts from her sister's phone. Then calls. I just grinned and didn't answer any of them. She stopped after an hour or so and gave me a few hours of silence. Then an all-caps email with a screenshot of the Netflix inactive account message. OMG. Even Netflix. Quote, I admit I giggled. The fallout wasn't over though. A month later, after she realized how much less she has from me after winning her case, she files an appeal. It is denied due to lack of reason. A month later, she files a complaint that I wasn't paying her car payment. Just an excuse to get into court. I had been paying it. And I was also pretty confident that even if I hadn't, she didn't know how to get into that loans account. She legally could. Just never had cared to learn how. I had a lawyer at this point, and we both go to court. She is going to join by phone. The officer paused before calling and tells my lawyer, this lady is a piece of work. The validation of that statement will always remain with me. The call goes predictably. My ex makes irrelevant rants. The officer keeps shutting her down. Finally asks my ex for proof that I wasn't paying the car payment, as she is holding statements and check images proving I had. My ex nearly screams, I just know he isn't so he can hurt me. The officer replies, I am holding proof that he has paid it and is satisfying his legal obligation. The complaint is dismissed. Thank you. And hangs up on my ex. Divorce took another 10 months. Lots more crazy. Teaches her newbie lawyer a hard lesson. And I walked away with even less alimony than the spousal support. And only about 60% of the debt. I lost my dogs to her though. My only regret in the outcome. One is certainly past old age limits now. The other is in that range. I still miss them. Beautifully done. Never understood the power of keeping accurate records. But I'm sorry to hear about the dogs. Oh, I guess you are writing what I'm saying so you can make your friends hate me. Why? Was she saying the kind of thing that would make other people hate her? Edit. Typo. I'm sorry you had to go through all this and about the dogs. That sounds like a terrible time. How long were you together before her mask fell off? Also, I'm glad you gave her exactly what she asked for. Good showing. Poor dogs though. My brother went through a divorce and made a generous offer to pay for his kids' upkeep. She decided that was not enough and insisted they went the legal route. Called the CSA in this country. My brother happily agreed as he knew precisely what they would assess his payment to be. Yep. They determined he was overpaying. She tried to pull away. But once CSA is involved, you cannot uninvolve them. Then came the divorce. My brother offers to give her the house free and clear as a home for his kids, plus child support. And he would walk away with an equal amount of cash to set up his new life. Again, not good enough for her. We found out through a third party that she was boasting she was going to take him to the cleaners. She wanted the house and half the money in child support. So they went to court. She even hired a barrister to fight her corner, who apparently looked at my brother's proposal and told the judge he found it a sensible and equitable offer. Strangely enough, the judge agreed as well. She got the house and no cash. Story does not end there. As part of the settlement, they each had to declare all financial details to the court, and my brother knew she had a secret credit card with £15,000 of debt on it that she didn't declare. If she had declared it, it would have been included in the settlement. But she kept it quiet. Embarrassed, we assumed. So come the divorce. She gets the house but no cash. But she has this secret debt she cannot pay off. So she panics and starts making noises about future earnings, pension, inheritances, etc. My brother knows about the debt, so made an offer to forego £15,000 for her to sign away all future claims. She snaps it up, and after all that, she still had the audacity to claim that my brother should pay her lawyers and barrister fees. Ho ho ho. 2 years later, my brother inherits £1 per 2 million. She cannot claim a penny. She screwed herself every step of the way. That was a very satisfying malicious compliance to read. Shit man, so satisfying right up to that last paragraph. Sorry about the dogs. You're a fantastic writer. ICSNT understand the dogs going to her. What was the reasoning there? I hope she looked after them. From experience, divorce is hard. I feel for you, mate. It's always nice when people show you how right you were to leave them. Sounds just as dirty as my parents' divorce. I am glad you didn't have kids involved. Seeing my mom go through it was rough, but I am glad she did. I had even told her she needed to 2 years prior. Our lives, Mom, my younger brother and I, have been so much better without him. Mom's biggest concern during it all was custody of my younger brother. I was already over 18, but my brother was 14-15. Do you know why divorce is so expensive? Because it's worth it. Sucks about the dogs though. Family law attorney and mediator here. This story made me laugh and also triggered some PTSD. I hate clients like her that won't accept they got a great deal by bargaining outside of court. They insist on going to court because they just want to tell the judge what a boss their spouse is. Guess what? Nobody cares about your hurt feelings. Then they think you're a bad attorney because the judge followed the law and they ended up with less than they already had. My second thought is about your horrible mediator. I've been to a ton of them as attorney and also as a mediator myself. You never put the two parties in the same room. It cuts down on a lot of nonsense. Your mediator did you no favors. Unless the spouse hasn't worked for a considerable amount of time due to child care duties. Alimony, spousal support needs to die. Fucked around and found out. Sorry you lost the dogs. She sounds like a terrible wife, but I'm hoping a good doggy mom. Wow, that was satisfying to read. Well done. I am so sorry about looking your dogs. That sounds very painful. I hope you're in a good place now. She legally could. Just never had cared to learn how. This is why a separation of chores is detrimental. I've started teaching my wife how to take care of the maintenance on the house. If I die before her, I want to make sure she can do all the things. I'm sorry you went through this. I was able to keep my house because my ex-wife didn't know much about mortgages and equity and such. I downplayed the value of the house, and we were underwater with the mortgage. She didn't realize that equity builds as years move on. House is now not underwater and worth more than I paid for it initially. Your poor dogs. Either she is a beautiful woman or marriage changed her drastically. Lucky for you. You've seen the light and freed yourself.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.